Jeff Mylander, recovered alcoholic and addict.
Jeff.
I'm really honored to be here. The Salvation Army is one of the places I refused help from, and it's been a launching point for a lot of people that I know in the program that have bettered their life from here. My sober date's November 5th of 2017, and I'm so grateful for that. So is my family, my neighbors, taxpayers. And a lot of people are grateful for that. And I do that because I have a home group. I have a service commitment. I have a sponsor that knows he's my sponsor because I call him every day and he knows what's going on in my life. And I sponsor other guys now that I'm through the steps. So a little bit about me. I ain't going to make that too long, but I was born in Chicago a little bit around the time Elvis died, so if you don't know, it doesn't matter. So I was born to a young mom who married a dude that was way older than her, and he was an alcoholic. He's admitted that he was an alcoholic. He was in the program for a little while, so I don't mind calling him an alcoholic. And she had already had my sister, and we were in Chicago. And shortly, I was like about 15 months old when she divorced my dad, and she got with another guy who was in the Navy at Great Lakes Navy base, and he adopted me and my sister. We ended up moving to Virginia because that's where most Navy brats live, and so we lived in the Tidewater region. He went to, I don't know, Chesapeake or something like that. So at about 5, I was adopted by him and took his last name. My birth dad signed over his parental rights so that he wouldn't have to pay child support. He didn't show up anyway, so it didn't matter who had whose last name. And so shortly after we moved to Virginia, my mom discovered that he was molesting my sister and me, and she reported it, and I don't know what happened, but we ended up in foster care. And that was like, I started school in foster care. And so right away I was different because, like, you're in a foster home and all the kids knew, and, you know, they treat you different, right? So far back as I can remember, I was a real angry kid. Didn't know why. And so by the end of my elementary school years, I was in special ed for behavior disorders because I didn't know how to act. We bounced around a lot. I didn't have a childhood home. She was with a different dude by the time I came back to her. When I bounced around from foster home to foster home because of my behavioral issues. Nobody wanted me, right? And school to school. So I never had stability early on in my life. And I always felt like an outcast, like the downtrodden, right? And so in the 5th grade, my anger got me put in the special ed classes. Well, now I'm way different because now I don't even have a bus stop. Like the little bus that goes neat with the handicap sign on the back picks me up at the end of my driveway while all the neighborhood kids are over here chilling watching me. And so I've just been different all my life. Nobody acted as crazy as I did. And they'd sit back and look at me like, what the heck is wrong with him? And I never knew why. I didn't know why. My mom didn't know what to do with me. So she'd put me in psych wards, and they try to help me with medication and therapy. Nothing could help me. And that was my life. Pretty much till I got sober. But so fast forward, spent a couple years in juvenile. About 15 and 16, I was in juvenile, and in that time my mom moved from Virginia back to Chicago. I ended up getting kicked out of a psych ward, long-term residential treatment center there, and so the state of Virginia had enough with me, and they're like, somebody from Chicago's got to come get this kid. And so they had to sign me out of the detention center and promise they were taking me back to Chicago. So at 16, I was in Chicago and going to BD classes there. Well, the kids there are a little, they're like me. They're real violent, and they're all in gangs, and it was enticing. I always sought chaos and drama and excitement. People ask me what my first drug of choice was. It was adrenaline. I loved it. I loved fighting. I loved kicking in doors, stealing cars, all that stuff. It was thrilling. It gave me excitement. And then I had a little clique that I ran with, so I was part of a family, which I never had. So at, let's see, I was in school for a couple months and I dropped out as a senior. My senior year started, I was already in the county jail because up there in Illinois at 17 you're an adult. So they weren't playing with me. I was like 17 in 2 weeks and I was in Cook County jail. Like, I think y'all took me to the wrong place. No, I was right where I needed to be. So yeah, I danced around my whole 17th year in and out of county jails all over the state of Illinois, and they had enough of me, so they sent me to prison for a burglary where I stole a bunch of guns and wouldn't tell them who I sold them to. So it carried 4 to 15. They gave me 8, and they tried to give me boot camp, but I was too violent for that, so I ended up doing the time. And while I was running the streets on my 16th, 17th year, that's what the fellas do. We just sit there and drink and smoke weed and mess with girls and fight, and that was normal to me, right? And I felt a part of. And when I got in the program, they talked about a spiritual malady, and I knew I wasn't right in the spirit. But the symptoms of the spiritual malady that I read in the big book was probably the first thing I ever highlighted in any big book I ever read. And it says we were having problems with personal relationships. I had no long-term friends. I don't even remember the first girlfriend I had, but I'm pretty sure I was an adult. So I could relate to that. And I couldn't control my emotional natures. Like, I raged over the littlest thing. I would get violent over somebody cutting in front of me in line in like 3rd grade. And I mean violent. Like, I got detention for breaking a kid's finger, and then at lunch I hit him in the face with his own lunch tray in like 3rd grade. Who does that? And then we were prey to misery and depression. When I got here, everybody's like, oh, you're full of anxiety and depression? That's good. Your life sucks. Like, it's supposed to. That's normal, right? But even before I drank and drug, I was always depressed. Not like suicidal, but like to find the urge to go to school, which I loved going to school. My friends were there. When I'm thinking about schoolwork, I'm not thinking about trouble at home or nothing. But I was always the smartest kid in my class because I paid attention to schoolwork because I was like escaping him in the books. So I'd get done like 20 minutes before class was done, and then I'd get in a lot of trouble. School bus, neighborhood, wherever I was at, there I was. Had a feeling of uselessness. I had never had a purpose in life. I never knew what my calling was. From 4 or 5 years old, I didn't know what I was supposed to do, how I could make my mom love me, teachers, anybody. Full of fear. Now, when I got here, I didn't think I was scared of anything. Thank God for good sponsorship because he helped me realize I was always afraid. All of my problems were based on fear. And hopefully your sponsors could get you to the bottom of that. I came up with like a page and a half of fears. When I got here, I was like, only fears I would admit to is like scorpions and black widows. That was it. Unhappy? Yeah, I was very unhappy and couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. So that was the spiritual malady they told me. And I can relate to that. And it's weird because the second time I went to prison, fast forwarding, I had been on psych meds since 1st grade, kindergarten, somewhere around there. And so when you go in to receiving, you got to see the shrink, and he's got to monitor your doses and how much you take it and what you take it for. And the only time, I mean, I grew up with probation officers, case managers, all them type of people. And he said, yo, you're back again? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, you're going to keep coming back till we find the right mix of meds or till you find God. And that struck me. I was like, what? What'd you just say? So when I did land in my cell house, I gave my life to God, right? Okay, cool. Maybe he'll help me stay out of here. And my mom was Catholic on Easter and Christmas, and we had a big Bible on the coffee table. That's about as much church as I got out of being at home. But in detention centers and juvenile prisons and stuff like that, there's always somebody that brings the Bible in. And if you don't go to church, you got to stay in your room till church is over with. So I went, and I sought God, right? But I could not live up to God. And I believed that he was all forgiving, but I didn't think that he forgave me. I thought I was too bad and too hateful to believe in a loving God. He couldn't love me if I was full of hate. It even said that in some of the things that I read. So I never felt worthy of God's love. So the year and 9 months in prison, like I tore through the body. Like I stopped cussing. I didn't get in no fights. I went to the gym. I was a teacher's aide at the pre-GED and GED classes while I was waiting to get into college. And right when I got done with college, I got out. And I knew in that little journey that I couldn't serve God drunk. That was not God's. I couldn't be worthy of that God drunk. But that didn't stop me. 6 o'clock in the morning, they put me on a train from Southern Illinois to Chicago, and I was in the bar car drinking Heinekens for 3.5 hours against my will. Didn't realize that then. I thought I was celebrating. So, yeah, I went on a little run, and it was early February in Chicago. I don't know if any of y'all ever seen pictures of Chicago in early February, but when you get out and you're just in prison clothes, it's not pleasant. So I walked about 2 miles with a box full of paperwork and pictures and all my letters to the homeless shelter. And I was frostbitten by the time I got there. So by the time they warmed me up and my skin came back to being right color, my PO showed up. It was such a big homeless shelter in downtown Chicago that the probation officers had their own office downstairs. And so I went and seen him, and he offered drug treatment to this one guy, but he had stuff to do. He had to go get his food stamps, and he had to do stuff. So I'm like, I'll go. And so I went to the west side to this. I mean, we were locked in because it was in a bad neighborhood. And after about 2 weeks there, I started noticing on my case manager's wall that it looked like a camping trip. And I started asking her, "Who's them kids you're with?" And, that's where I came from. I transferred over here. And I'm like, "There's a place like that?" And it was like commercials you see. So I got transferred to the suburbs to like 50 wooded acres on Fox Lake. We could fish in between meetings, just sign out a fishing pole from the maintenance man. And I think the only thing that I learned there, so my manager or my case manager had told me, she was like, "Well, when you think you're being slick, take the L out. You're sick." Other than that, that whole 90 days was just like make it through the winter, So I did. Made it through the winter. Went to a transitional living house where I met a man that he had just gotten out of prison himself. He was a non-vet, older guy, and he had found God, and his journey and his gifts were different, and so he reached out to other inmates. We would collect coats for people that would get locked up in the summer and get out in the winter, and we donate them to the county jail. I did fundraising. I'd make the cans and put them in convenience stores and corner stores and stuff. Eventually, he bought a van, and I was still on parole, but I would drive people from the treatment center or the transitional living center across Wisconsin and get them jobs. And don't tell anybody. But yeah, I went across state lines, and I never got caught. But at that point in time, I was picking people up from the county jail. Like guards that had just seen me not too long ago were releasing inmates to me to drive them across state lines while I was on parole. It was pretty cool. Anyway, so like that taught me a little bit that service work, giving back, I felt a part of. Now, I wasn't sober. I sure wasn't sober. I was doing all kinds of stuff. I was selling pills. I was drinking. I was smoking weed. Like I was all over the place. But I found a purpose, right? So I came out here and did the same thing. Went to a couple, anytime in my life, I got sober at 40 years old, and anytime in my life that I didn't have a girlfriend, pretty much that's it. If I wasn't locked up or have a girlfriend, I was homeless. Yeah, I never had a lease in my name. In 2010, I was going for SMI disability, and they're like, "Okay, we need a list of all your jobs." I'm like, "Oh my goodness, you don't even know." So I had to pay for it, and they printed out all my jobs. And in 2010, let's see, so I think 95 was, so in 15 years I had 80 jobs that the people knew about. What's the government agency that takes your taxes? IRS. Yeah, they had a list of all of them, and that ain't counting the cash paying jobs I had in between those jobs. So my whole life was chaos, drama, erratic, right? So the way I got here, my last hostage I had for about a year and a half, and she loved me for some reason, but I couldn't stand her. But the only thing I liked about her was she'd come home with an 18-pack. She didn't drink. She drank them wine coolers, which I didn't like drinking. She bought me a weed card, so every time she'd have payday, I would go to the dispensary with her, take her money, go in there, get what I wanted, and come home. She provided all my needs. Cigarettes. That's all I needed. Weed, cigarettes, beer. That's all I needed, right? And I didn't work. I didn't work for 4.5 years before I got sober. Sometimes I tell that story. I guess I could. So in 2013, I know this is a CMA meeting, but I've messed with tweaker chicks. I've fought tweaker dudes. I've sold tweak. I've lived in trap houses. Never put it in my body. But I like the chaos and drama that comes with that lifestyle. You might have heard it said, if the drugs don't kill you, the lifestyle will. I'm the lifestyle will kind of guy. So anyway, we were drinking vodka, and I'm the only one not high on meth, and so everybody else is up, and I'm taking a nap, and somebody beat me in the head with a piece of rebar and took what I had, and I came to 3 days later getting pulled off life support, and I was blind in one eye. I'm still blind in one eye. And so after that, I went to a real dark place, and I couldn't do nothing. Like, poor me, you know. So the women that I messed with liked that. It gave them a sense of purpose, a man needing them. And I used that. I've always been a womanizer because I couldn't provide for myself, so I needed a woman to provide for me. And so it had just got so miserable. All I did for months on end was just sit there and drink and smoke weed. I had nothing going. I wouldn't change clothes for days, wouldn't leave the house unless it was with her to go pick up her stuff, or every once in a while I'd go to the grocery store with her, but I didn't do nothing. And I'd stare at the TV. I didn't even watch TV. It was just on. And so I was wasting my life. And by that point, I had accepted that that was like God's plan for my life. Like, that was my destiny. I'm living up to my family name, you know. I didn't think there was any possibility that I could change. So I was like, all right, I'm done, checking out. And I went homeless for a couple of months. And then that couple of months, I went to a place called Community Bridges. And God bless them people. They tried to help me. And they eventually did, but I put them through the ringer before they did, and you know, and I'd stay the night, eat a cheese sandwich, you know, and I was always drunk when I went there, and I'd wake up in the morning needing a cigarette, and I'd be like, all right, thanks for your help, I'm out here, and you know, they're like, go to this place, and you know, they'll you know, go to church 3 times a week. Nah, I ain't doing the 12 steps. No, I ain't. And I don't know what changed the last time, like the 8th time I was there in 2 months. They got to the bottom of the list, and they're like, there's a place in Phoenix. I'm from, well, I've lived in Mesa since 2001. And they're like, there's a place in Phoenix that'll take you with no money, but you got to, you know, work the steps. I'm like, whatever. And you know, it's early November. It's kind of chilly out there, you know. And I was too good for cash. I couldn't let the world know I was homeless. So I would just get drunk and pass out behind warehouses. And my alarm clock was people coming to work in the morning like, what are you doing here? And then I get up and wander around. I just talk about useless. That was me. And I wouldn't panhandle. I had stopped stealing because I'm a good guy. Yeah, I just didn't know. I was grasping for straws. And I didn't want to go on. Ended up at St. Luke's for like 10 days. And I remember when they were releasing me, you know, I was trying to convince the shrink I wasn't going to kill myself when I walked out. And I told him, I was like, it's not that I want to die. I just don't want to live like this anymore. And he didn't give me no suggestions or nothing. He was just like, okay, I believe you, and he let me go. So then I went to CBI, and they sent me to the Solution. Now, the guy that was managing the Solution, he was real strict, and he was in tune. There was 110 people there, men and women, when it was full. And he knew what everybody was doing, what was going on. He was in tune. A lot of accountability. So I moved in on a Friday. And that Saturday, and I'm waiting, like I'm on probation, I got warrants, I got CPS, I got like all these, how am I going to get a job? I ain't got no money. All I got's 2 dirty changes of clothes in a backpack. Like, I don't have a resume. I don't remember none of the jobs I had. I don't know where I'm at. I don't know what's where, what roads are what. And I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. And then Saturday comes, and everybody's doing their thing. You know, they're with their families. Some of them are working. And I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to get out of this rut I'm in. And I went back to the old neighborhood, and I'm like, okay, I can't drink. What's the point of drinking, right, if you don't get drunk? I can't drink and go back and get my stuff. So I won't drink, but I'll smoke a joint with you. So I smoked a joint with my buddy. It was around noon. I waited till after dinner to go back so they wouldn't know I was high. And I went to a meeting there. I don't remember what it was. I was just sitting there trying to figure life out. And then Sunday came, and the vans don't take you to outside meetings on Sundays from the Solution. Um, so I went to the Sunday night speaker meeting there, and that was my first home group. But I was willing all that day for some direction. Somebody tell me what to do. And what happened to me was Saturday night when everybody was getting ready for bed, I was sitting out in the shadows of the building. Nobody knew I was there. And I've always been fascinated by the moon and sunrises and sunsets and stuff. And I was so out of touch with any God. But I said his name, and I was looking at the moon and that little star right next to it, and I was just like, God, if this is where you want me to be, I'll stay. And all that trying to figure everything out, all that, stress I was under, went away instantaneously. It was like like I could breathe. And I slept real good that night, like that first night in jail after a long run sleep, like I slept really good that night. And so I got my 24-hour chip at the Sunday night speaker meeting, and I asked them for a service commitment because they knew that people at the Solution had to do that. The only requirements to be there was to get a home group of service. They give you a week to get a sponsor, and I didn't have time to sponsor shop because after I got my 24-hour chip, a guy came to me after the meeting and gave me his business card and was like, "I'm your sponsor. Do this, do that, read this, read that. How's this book gonna help me like figure out this warrant thing I got going on? And can my probation officer read this thing and help me out? Like maybe CPS would be convinced a little bit." Didn't get it. And I thought a sponsor was gonna be like lord over me, another boss. That's all I need, right? But he was just like, no, read this, this, and that, do this, this, and that, and give me a call. And so I just was at that point where I knew I didn't know how to live. I've been trying for 40 years. I didn't know how to be a dad. I didn't know how to be a family member. I didn't know how to be a friend or employee or any kind of member of society. I knew that for a long time. So with the spiritual malady that was described in me, when I drank and drugged, that went away. Like all of a sudden I had friends, what you got? Oh, I got this, I got that. Everybody needed me. I was the life of the party. Everybody wanted me around. Let's party with Jeff, I wasn't miserable until the party was over. And then I was left with myself. Anyway, so in the first step, when it was I was reading the doctor's opinion, and it's from a doctor, so I respect that. A lot of doctors have tried to help me, and they just couldn't. They couldn't figure me out. And he couldn't figure out alcoholism. This Dr. Silkworth couldn't figure out alcoholism. And Bill came up with a miracle of a program. I'm so grateful for these 12 steps. And so, admitting powerless, like it's easy to admit I'm powerless when my back's against the wall. I surrender, right? Well, I'm a recovered alcoholic and a recovered addict, but I am still powerless. And there's two different thoughts. I'm powerless over alcohol, my life is unmanageable, right? But when my life is not unmanageable as it is today, I'm still powerless. Like they're not connected. I'm still powerless over alcohol. If I leave here and go grab a tall can, you can bet that ain't all I'm drinking tonight. My experience. I've never been able to do it, not since I first started drinking. And who knows where I'll end up then. I could steal a car, I could get in a fight, I could get killed. Like who knows? All cards are off the table. I go to pretty crazy places when I'm drunk and high. And so I'd just rather not tonight. You know what I mean? I'd rather not. And so in step 2 came to believe that somebody could restore me to sanity. I don't think I ever had sanity. I had a lot of higher powers, but I don't think I ever had sanity. Not with the crazy thoughts, behaviors, feelings, anything. So restoring me to sanity, I didn't want none of that. I didn't want none. I wanted sanity, but I didn't want him to restore me to any other point. And then I was so thirsty in the third step when I'm turning my will over to God. Like I've been fighting everybody all my life, every institution, schools, doctors, hospitals, institutions all over. My mama, poor lady, everybody, physically, emotionally, fighting all my life, far back as I can remember. And so to be able to turn all that over to something higher than me that knows what to do with it, I was welcoming it. What's the worst thing that could happen? I could go through these 12 steps and not work. Suicide's still an option. Let me try this before I end it all, right? So I tried. And man, oh, I'm so grateful I'm still here today. And then in the fourth step, a lot of people, and even guys that I sponsor, are scared of this fourth step. To me, it was like I said, I was thirsty. And it talks about getting down to the causes and conditions. And I was just, how come every time in my life I get something on my plate, something comes along and knocks it off, right? Well, through the fourth step, I realized that it wasn't something, it was me. I kept dumping my plate out. I don't know if it was the fear that I was talking about. I don't know if it was, just fear of success. I don't know what it was, but everything that had happened to me everywhere that I went were decisions that I made. It wasn't this cold, dark world. It wasn't a mean God. It wasn't because my mama didn't hold me enough. It wasn't none of y'all's fault. Y'all didn't even know me back then. But I had to look at that. Like, what was my part in all of it? In all of it. Even to the point where, once again, thank God for good sponsorship. Even to the point where, I had a big resentment against my mom. Big resentment. We were estranged most of my life. But it's not that she didn't love me. I just wasn't. How you gonna love a kid, show a kid love when, okay, you got an A on that test, but in that 10 minutes after you were done taking it, you hit that kid in the head with a globe. Like, you can't congratulate me and punish me at the same time. So I never gave her an opportunity to show me the love she had for me. But I realized, all you gotta do is watch the news, Jeff. My mom never locked me in the closet and starved me for months on end. Or I didn't die in a trunk in the garage. The things these parents are doing to these kids today, my mom didn't. We always had a clean house. I never starved in her house. Yeah, she whooped me, but she didn't kill me. I'm still here. So I just didn't give her a chance to show me her love. But I believe in the end, my mom did love me. She loved me enough that when she didn't know what to do with me, she'd put me somewhere that they could try to help me. And for that, I'm grateful today. I don't have that resentment. And so in 5, I had to tell another man that. But in step 3, I turned my will and my life over to God, right? So I didn't have to trust him. I didn't have to know him. I didn't have to think, what if he tells somebody? I didn't care. I trusted my higher power. So I told him everything. I made a list so big, he was like, we'll save that stuff for later. Like, he didn't even want to hear it all. We just had to get to the main character defects. And most of my character defects were fear and selfishness, self-centeredness. Pretty much all of them were self-centered fear. That's the root of all my problems today. Self-centered fear. And so in 6 and 7, I begged God. Like, once I seen what was wrong with me, I was traumatized by my first 4 step. That's why I stayed single for a year and 9 months. When I did my sex inventory, I was like, Jeff, you have no business being with a woman. Not even a ratchet chick. Like, you messed them up. Like, no, leave them alone. So I didn't. I was not focused on, like I said, it was a co-ed facility. I was not focused. And I saw so many guys go out over relationships, over chasing women and not recovery. Like, I wish recovery looked like a woman to some people. So 6 and 7, and I still work on those. A lot of people say, oh, live in 10, 11, and 12. Well, 10, 11, and 12 keep me living in 6 and 7. Because I can take care of one character defect in the morning, but by lunchtime it's going to pop back up, or tomorrow it's going to pop back up. Anyway, so the amends process, a lot of my amends I can't make. I was such a vagabond and off the grid for most of my life. So I don't know, even with Facebook, I don't remember a lot of their names. I don't know, my life was such a blur. But I was willing. And in that willingness, now I just don't treat anybody like that. My financial amends, that's a living amends. I paid back my creditors, but I also don't run up debt that I can't pay. I show up to work. Like, that's part of my living amends for those debts. My mom died about 8.5, 9 years ago of cancer. The end of her life, we had a pretty good relationship. And so thank God for sponsoring dudes and meditation, because I was taking a guy through 8 and 9, about a year sober. And God just put it on my heart, like I need to take further action. I'm like, how do you make amends to dead people? I'll never have another mom, so I can't treat my next mom better, right? So we went on a retreat in the springtime of this year, and I had written a letter. I had to do the same thing for my kid's mom. She died of this disease about 9 months before I got sober. So I went up to Prescott with him, and in between meetings, we wandered off into God's country, and I read him the letter. He said a prayer. I read him the letter. We said another prayer in closing, and I felt like, I don't know, I had felt good after my first living amends, but like I felt complete, but not fully complete until the Saturday night speaker meeting. The guy just ended with a story that was like confirmation that the spirit world had taken my amends, and I was done with it. There's no more action I needed to do. It was a miracle. And June 11th was her birthday, and I was in Maricopa at my sister's house, and it was about 12:05, and I was laying on the couch, and she was going upstairs to go to bed, and she walked past my mom's urn, and she said, "Happy birthday." And I didn't think much about it, but the next morning I was driving home, and sun's coming up, and I meditate when I'm driving, when I see these mountains and the sun and the moon and all the pretty clouds and stuff we have out here, and I get as close to God as I can while I'm paying attention to the road. And I started crying like I'm doing now. And I started crying, and it freaked me out. Like as soon as I got home, I called my sponsor. I'm like, why am I crying? She's been dead 8.5 years. And he's like, now that you've made that amends, you can start the grieving process. I knew nothing about that. I did not grieve. I've been around a lot of death in my life and a lot of violence. And death is just the only fact of life that we have, and I was pretty callous to it. But I missed her at that point in time. I had missed her, and I never missed her. All the times in my life that I didn't have my mama, I didn't care. People would say, "Your mama this," and I'd joke with them. Yeah, you're right. You know, I hated my mom, and when I realized that I had hated my mom, it shocked me, because hate was like unchanging anger. There was nothing my mom could say or do that would stop me from hating her. It was all an inside job. So that's just one of the amends that I made, and the blessing that I got from it. And so in 10's about being mindful and in tune with my mind, body, and soul. You know, continuing to take that inventory. You know, how is my day? How was I in my day? How was I interacting with people? And so, like, I'm in tune with my spirit. And when I'm out of sorts, I need to identify, why am I out of sorts? Is it because I have these expectations of y'all? You know, what'd you do to piss me off? Like, nothing. It's how I'm looking at what you're doing, really. And am I being honest? Yeah. You know, in the big book and How It Works, it talks about rigorous honesty, and I had to Google what rigorous honesty is. Extreme honesty, and I'm extremely honest, and some people don't like that, and I don't care. They can call their sponsor or pray about it or something, but I try not to cause harm and try to be tactful. Not always good at it. That's one of my character defects. But step 10 is about being mindful, and I have better days when I do. I probably do 6, 8, 10 steps on a good day, and probably 15, 20 on a bad day. And I always call my sponsor good or bad, and he tells me whether I have a good or bad day. And step 11, for the first 9 months of my sobriety, I just chalked up prayer and meditation together. I thought them deep, on my knees, connection with God, you know, crying, outpouring of gratitude and all that was meditation. And to some extent that I could justify that. But when I seen others reaping the benefits of meditation, I knew that I was missing that from my program. So I started seeking out people that did it, asking them questions, and just doing it. When I first got sober, they're like, okay, close your eyes and, you know, hold your breath or breathe in and count to 4. Like, I could not physically catch my breath in a room this big with all you dudes that I don't know. I'm not closing my eyes. Not going to happen. Like, I couldn't physically do it. After about 9 months of sobriety and my faith in a higher power, I could begin to do it. And so I did. And a guy that I respect a lot told me the only wrong way to meditate is by not doing it. So I just started doing it. And as with the rest of the program, it's all practice. You just do it till it works. And then when it works, you figure out another way to do it. So I just kept doing that. And I still, when I go to conventions and stuff and they have meditation meetings. I go and see how else can I do it. How can, I heard one guy, he was like, oh, a lot of people think meditation is a calming aspect, but to me it was an awakening. And I was like, oh wow, blew me away. And it kind of is, not all the time, depends on what's going on in my day. Meditation saved me not too long ago. I run a sober living house today, and I put a guy on a 9 o'clock curfew, and he's got a girlfriend, so he didn't like that. So he was moving out, and on his way out, he flattened 2 of my tires. Well, people don't do stuff like that to the old Jeff. But the new Jeff, the only part of this book I can remember was pause when agitated. And I took the suggestion of collecting men's phone numbers. Today I have some women in there too, but they're friends. But I have a grip of dudes in my phone, and they all start with AA. I don't care what fellowship I meet them in, it's AA. So they're the first thing on my phone. And I just scrolled through, and I called the guy, and I'm like, all right, paused when agitated. What's the next right indicated action? And he gave me some suggestions, and I made it through that day without getting messed up or messing anybody else up. And that was a miracle. And that guy didn't even know me, but the people that have known me all my life knows that's a miracle, and they see that. They feel it when they're around me, the way that I talk, the way that I smile, the way that I sound. When you're living this God-conscious life, you give off an aura. I don't know if y'all ever been walk into a room and people are all angry and talking and they shut up. You know that's a dark room. You just feel people's aura. And so when people come around me, they can feel. And I chalk it up to God. I chalk everything up to God. My brother gives me all these accolades. I'm like, you just telling me you see God in me. He don't like that. He's agnostic. I wouldn't go that far, but he loves me anyway. Step 12, they told me early on that ensures long-term sobriety. And now I'm past the point about, am I getting sober or not? Now I'm trying to grow in effectiveness and understanding. Now I have a job that's a career. I've got health insurance and vision and dental that's not access. Like I've always been on welfare access insurance wherever I went. Now I'm scheduling dentist appointments. I haven't seen a dentist since I was like 10. I mean, except the ones in, I call it Siberia, the ones in prison that like just, you got anything I can yank? They don't clean your teeth and stuff. The poor lady's like, yeah, it looks like you have 30 years of tartar on your teeth. It was so bad, like they're flaking off the tartar and all the coffee stains come off. What do you know? My teeth ain't even stained. It's great. But yeah, like, I mean, I heard people say they grew up in these programs, and I did, man. Like, I show up when people are in need, whether they're family or friends. I show up. What can I do to help? All around the world that I tore through this world for 40 years, man. And if I stay sober and live in God's will for the next 4 years, there's no way I could pay back the damage I've caused. And so anytime I can show up and help somebody and show them the love of God and that this program works, I'm honored here tonight. I love being here. I'm glad y'all are here. It does work. If you don't have to figure it out, if you ain't got to understand it, if you're just willing to do what another recovered alcoholic and addict did, that's all you need. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. That's it. And I was willing. I was like, all right, it's either die or do what he did to make his life better. When I first came in the rooms, I couldn't relate to these people. I'm like, hey, you're hugging and high-fiving and smiling all over the place. You obviously ain't felt what I've felt and done what I've done and been where I've been. And when I started listening to these guys in these meetings, I go to a lot of meetings still today. I heard the pain in their stories. I heard the dysfunction and the chaos. And then I heard how their life is today, and I was like, I want that. I want that smile. That was a big part of the program that I wanted. I got a buddy named Garth. He's a Packers fan, but I love him anyway. But he's got a big smile. And now people are telling me they like my smile, even though I got a gap and chipped teeth, and I don't care. I'm smiling today. I catch myself smiling. I don't even know why. I'm riding along on the forklift. I'm smiling. He's like, what are you smiling at? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just happy. Like, I don't know. Look at me weird. I don't care. Take a picture, But it works like that. Like, all I knew was happy, mad, and sad. And now I have joy. I find joy everywhere, in the newcomer, in the dude celebrating 35 years. Like, I'm going to go to the Alcathon for Christmas. I have fun in recovery. I do a lot of stuff around the valley, my kids were adopted. Well, my youngest son was adopted while I was still out there. And when I got sober, after I started meditating, I signed over rights to my oldest son. They're teenagers. But now their adoptive family has no qualms letting them spend the weekend with me. Like, that doesn't I've never heard of that. They're not in my family. They don't know anybody in my family. But they trust that I'm going to keep them safe. I'm going to provide for them. They trust me today. My son's birthday was in November, and I took him to Olive Garden for his 17th birthday. And she joined us. Their adoptive mom joined us. The dad was doing some stuff at the house. And all their little brothers and sisters. And we're chit-chatting, and I have my new girlfriend there. And they're chit-chatting. And I started telling my new girlfriend what a blessing those people have been in my family for 10 years now. And she told me that I was a blessing to their family. It blew me away. Blew me away. How am I like, you got my kids because I couldn't take care of them. How am I a blessing to you? I couldn't fathom it. The gift of desperation is what I had. I was so desperate that I was willing to try anything. And I tried everything I could think of. Let me try something you could think of. You did that and that's how it works for you? Let me try that. If it don't kill me, that was the best idea I could come up with, kill myself. So if it don't kill me, then you ain't doing no worse than me. Let me try what you're doing. And it works. And I still do that today. When I run into problems, you know, I'm in a position now to be a homeowner, from homeless to homeowner in a couple years because I made my financial amends. Like, I need guidance here. I don't know what equity is or what the interest rate's supposed to be. Like, you know, they offered me health insurance. I got to call my sponsor. Hey, so I got these different plans and this is what they cut. Like, it's French to me. What is this? But I still need that. I am literally growing up. My sponsor gives me parenting and advice, and it ain't required, but in 2 years, we built a little bit of a relationship, so he's a good friend of mine. He's not my best friend, but he's a good friend. He knows everything. He knows more about me than anybody. Well, now my girlfriend knows probably more than he knows, because there's some stuff I didn't tell him that I tell her. Anyway, so, but I needed at least one dude that knew everything, what I think, what I feel, what I want to do, what I did. What, you know, like I tell him everything, and he'll say, try that. Or he'll say, what are you thinking? You know, a lot of times he just says, pray and meditate. That's his answer for everything. Oh, the AC went out in your car? Pray and meditate. You laughed. And it works. It works. It's funny, because I still haven't got it fixed. It works. But man, life is good today, man. I'm going to have my kids this weekend. And that's a blessing. And I'm not ashamed to take them to meetings. They come to my home group on Friday. They help me set up. They help me tear down on Sunday before I take them home. They come to Crossroads to Heaven with me. And people love seeing them. They're real nice kids for what they've been through. You know, I love my job. I like the people that I work with. I drove here in a car with 4 matching tires and, you know, insured. I pay for it. I have the keys. I don't have to ask anybody for them. We got the same phone number since you know, when I got my 90-day chip, a guy at my other home group with 20 years gave it to me, and he said, Jeff, I got my 20 years because I still do today what I learned to do in my first 90 days. And I still do today. My sponsor made me, like, I had to take a break. So now instead of 9 meetings a week, I go to 6 meetings a week. And I still have 2-3 home groups and 2 different fellowships. And I still, like was said, I keep a dude in 1, 2, and 3 going through the steps. I got other guys that are through the steps. I got other guys that are in 8 and 9 or 10, 11, and 12. I don't ever say no. Like, God empowers me to do all kinds of stuff I never thought was possible for a guy like me. He empowers me. So I was powerless, right? But I believe in this power up here, and the steps plug me into that power and keep me plugged in. I was blocked off by hate and character defects galore. So of course I couldn't tap into it before. But through the process of the step and help with my sponsor, I unblocked myself. Now that power is attainable for me. And the blessing of this program is, like, I couldn't get him in church because then people there, they're like, oh, ex-con, he's an alcoholic and an addict. What do we do with him? You know, I come into these rooms and y'all don't care what my God looks like. You know, the pastor's telling me, you know, I'm doing it wrong. And I come in the rooms and they're like, you can come up with your own conception. Yeah, I read the Bible, but nobody tells me what it says or how to say it or what to do. I have a personal relationship with my God. And even in church, that's what they say. We want you to have a personal relationship with Jesus. But a lot of people that go to church don't even have that. It's sad. So I don't preach religion. I preach spirituality. And if you find it in church, God bless you. If you find it in these rooms, God bless you. If you find it at Apache Lake, God bless you. But you definitely, if you're powerless over a substance, you definitely need a power greater than you to get you away from it. Life is good today, man. I sleep good. I sleep through the night. I don't have nightmares. I enjoy myself in the mirror, as ugly as I am, scars, gap teeth, all that. I don't care. Like, imperfectly made by a perfect God. I don't care. I don't care what people think about me. For 40 years, I reacted to the world around me. And it's a cold, dark world, so I was a cold, dark dude. Now I shine the light of God, the love of God, because I have it. You know, I love because He loved me first. And that's a miracle for a guy like me anyway. Now I can go to those trap houses and instead of putting my order in, I can drag somebody out, get them to detox. Because as long as I'm there to do God's work, I'm protected no matter where I go. And I stay on the front lines. People that know me, even my cousin just told me on my way here, he's like, you stay in the trenches. It's where I was. Like, it's home to me, you know. I'm never better than, you know, when I drive past the homeless people at the bus stop, that was me. That was me. That's where I wanted to be. And it's still me. There's still the Jeff that drank and drugged for all them years, 24 years. It's like there's still a part of me that wants to go to the bus stop, drink a 40 and a blunt while I'm waiting on that hooker to get back with my bag of coke. And if I don't stay close to God and turn my will and my life over to Him, by God, I'll probably be there. I'm recovered, but there's work I got to do every day. When my mind's like, oh, you don't really have to go to a meeting. You've been sober 2 years. Your girlfriend wants to hang out. Well, if she wants the same dude she hung out with last time, I should probably go to that meeting. For real. When I got this job, I told them, they don't really know I'm in the program, but they can tell. They know. But I don't talk about it. I don't flaunt it. But I let it be known. Like, I get my kids once a month at least, and I go on 2 spiritual retreats a year. I got to get off at 4 o'clock on Friday. And I didn't tell them, but that's because my service commitment starts at 5. So I'm like, if I can't do that, I can't work here. And they're like, yeah, we can work with that. And so now, except for those times, I show up whenever. I'll work open to close. I'll work days off, whatever. I'll do whatever to make up for their compromising that. But if I don't do that bare minimum, chances are after you pay me, I'm not coming back. That's what I got to do. I have a grip of friends, true friends, that when they ain't talked to me in a while, they call to check on me and catch up on how my life's been. They're not like, hey, can I get, you got? Not like all that. No, they don't do that to me anymore. If they ask me if I got something, it's probably to find out if I'm going without. And then they'll offer me whatever I need. Those are the kind of dudes I mess with today. I have women in the program that I admire that show me what a good woman, an upstanding woman is. And the only time I call them is if they're in trouble or if I run into a woman that's in trouble. Because the only help that I give the women that are in trouble is another woman's number. That's how I help them. That's what was suggested to me. Anyway, because I'm still a pervert. Like, seriously, I get sick real quick and I'll take my will back. So there's stuff there's like 42 musts in this book. And if I don't, the only option for me is death. I'm going to die way before God wanted me to. Whether it's drinking, drugging, the lifestyle, the drugs, suicide. Like, if I don't do this deal, honestly, like, I could fake the front, I could be a podium preacher and all that, but what's my life look like at home? Are my kids happy to come to my house, or do I got to kidnap them? You know, like, does my boss want to fire me every day? Am I holding on by a thread? Am I canceling bills? Like, hey, I'll pay you next month. Like, that type of stuff. I don't live like that anymore. The proof's in the pudding. I wasn't faking anybody. Everybody knew. So I'm not anonymous. People know I'm in the program. I wasn't anonymous when I was out there. Everybody knew I was messed up. You could Google it. Like, literally, literally. Nothing good comes up on that first page about Jeff Mylander. Nothing good. Yeah, I don't. There's no family pictures of me when I was, school aged or nothing like that. Or on mug shots, or I'm wearing, orange or pink. They put me in pink because I was a escape artist, so they make you wear pink for run risk. That was fun. Anyways, man, life is good when you do good, man, and I just encourage all of y'all to just give up the fight, surrender, do it another man's way. They say if you see somebody with something that you got, ask him how he got it. And for me, it was something as simple as a smile. I just wanted to know how he had a smile. What are you smiling about? And it was joy. I have that today, and I'd love y'all to find it. I'm done.
Thank you.